Tom lived a quiet life on the edge of a small town. His house was old but peaceful, with a wide porch, tall trees, and a wooden fence that kept the noise away. He worked from home, fixing machines and writing small articles for science magazines. He liked the silence. It gave him space to think. One evening, just after sunset, Tom stepped outside with a cup of tea. The sky was orange and purple. Birds were flying home. Everything felt calm until a flash of light cut across the sky. It was fast, bright, and strange. It didn't move like a normal shooting star. It curved, dropped, and vanished behind the hills, not far from Tom's backyard. He narrowed his eyes. That wasn't normal, he whispered, curious. He put on his coat, grabbed the flashlight, and walked toward the woods behind his house. He didn't know what he would find, maybe nothing. But his heart beat faster with each step. As he got closer to the crash site, he saw a thin trail of smoke in the air. The smell was sharp, like burnt metal. His flashlight caught something shiny between the trees. There, in a small clearing, was a strange object. It looked like a small spacecraft, silver, smooth, and round, like a large drop of water. It was half buried in the dirt. Soft blue lights blinked along its sides. A part of it had opened, like a door, and steam rose from inside. Tom stepped forward carefully. "Hello," he called out. No answer. Then he heard a soft sound like someone breathing, or trying not to. From behind the ship, someone appeared. It was a young woman. She looked human but not quite. Her skin had a soft glow, and her eyes were larger than normal, shining silver blue in the dark. She wore a strange suit that looked both thin and strong, with wires running along the sleeves. She looked scared. Tom raised his hand slowly. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." The woman didn't reply. She looked at him, then at the trees, then back at her ship. Her hands shook slightly, but she didn't run. Tom took a step closer. "Ah, you hurt?" Still no words, but she gave a tiny shake of her head. He took off his coat and held it out to her. "It's cold. You can take this." She looked at the coat like it was a strange gift. Then, slowly, she reached for it and wrapped it around herself. "My name's Tom," he said gently. "Do you understand me?" She opened her mouth. A few quiet, broken words came out. "I hear you, not well, but yes." Tom smiled a little. "That's good enough. Come with me. I'll help." She hesitated, then nodded. Back at Tom's house, he made tea and gave her a warm blanket. She sat on the edge of the couch, very still, as if unsure what to do. Her eyes followed every sound, the ticking clock, the kettle, the wind outside. Tom placed a cup of tea in front of her. "It's just leaves in hot water. Try it." She picked up the cup with both hands and sniffed it. Then she took a tiny sip. Her eyes softened a little. "I won't ask too many questions tonight," Tom said. "You look tired." The woman glanced at the window. Then she got up and carefully pulled the curtains closed. She checked every corner of the room before sitting down again. Tom noticed. "You're hiding from someone, aren't you?" She looked at him, her expression unreadable. After a long silence, she said, "I escaped." He didn't push further. He just nodded and added more wood to the fireplace. "You can sleep in the guest room," he told her. "Clean sheets, quiet, no one will bother you here." Before going to sleep, Tom left her a clean towel, soft clothes, and some food. As he walked past the guest room door, he heard her lock it. Not just the lock, he heard furniture being pushed against the door. Tom sighed, but he understood. Whoever she was, wherever she came from, she had built strong walls around herself. Not real walls, emotional ones. Walls of fear, caution, and silence. He didn't know her name, her past, or her story. But something told him she wasn't dangerous. She was just lost. That night, Tom sat in his room, staring at the stars. He couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about her eyes, so alert, yet so tired. She looked like someone who had seen too much and trusted too little. He wondered what kind of world she came from, what kind of life she had, what kind of pain made her run all the way to Earth, and why, when he looked into her eyes, he felt like he wanted to protect her not just from others, but from her own fears too. Somewhere in the house, the floor creaked. Softly, then silence. Maybe, just maybe, her walls would come down one piece at a time. The next morning, Tom woke up early. The sun was shining through the trees, birds were singing, and everything felt calm. But his mind was still full of questions about the strange woman who had arrived from the stars the night before. He walked quietly to the kitchen, made some toast, and placed a pot of tea on the table. Then he looked toward the guest room door. It was still closed. He gently knocked. "Good morning. There's food if you're hungry." No answer. He waited a moment, then walked away to give her space. Later, when he returned, the door was open. The room looked clean. The blanket was folded. The woman was sitting on the porch, wrapped in the coat he had given her, her eyes watching the trees. Tom sat down beside her without saying a word. He didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable. After a while, she spoke softly. "It's quiet." "Here," Tom nodded. "That's why I like it. Some people need noise. I need peace." She looked down. "Peace is ... strange to me." Tom studied her face. There was something gentle about her, but also something broken, like a person who had lived inside a cage for too long. "Do you want to tell me your name?" he asked kindly. She hesitated, then said, "Rena." "That's a beautiful name." Tom said with a smile, "I'm glad you're safe here, Rena." She didn't reply, but her shoulders relaxed a little. Later that day, Tom gave Rena a small tour of the house. He showed her the kitchen, the living room, and the tiny study where he worked on his articles. Rena followed him silently, touching things with careful fingers: books, chairs, wooden shelves. She seemed to be learning everything with her eyes and her hands. When they reached the back room, she stopped. "This room," she said. "Can I use it?" It was an old storage room, mostly empty except for some boxes and old tools. Tom nodded. "Sure, it's yours if you want." Rena stepped inside and looked around. She touched the walls and the window. Then she slowly started moving things. She placed boxes against the window and covered it with a blanket. She arranged furniture to block every open space. Tom watched quietly. She was building her own safe corner again. He wanted to say something, but he didn't. He just let her do what she needed. That evening, Tom sat at the dinner table while Rena stood near the door. "You can sit," he said. "I prefer standing," she replied. Tom nodded and took a bite of food. "I made pasta. It's simple. You'll like it." Rena finally came forward and sat down slowly. She tasted a small bite, then another. "It's warm," she said. "I've never tasted food like this." "You don't eat warm food?" Tom asked. She shook her head. "On my planet, food is made for energy, not taste." "Well," Tom said, "on Earth, good food can make a bad day feel better." She looked at him quietly. "Why are you being kind to me?" Tom looked back at her. "Because you needed help. And because I believe kindness is something humans should always offer, especially to someone lost and afraid." Rena didn't answer, but her eyes seemed softer than before. Later that night, Tom was in his study reading a book when he heard soft footsteps. Rena peeked into the room. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course," Tom replied. "Why do humans ... share stories?" Tom closed his book. "Because stories help us understand each other. They let us feel things through someone else's eyes. Joy, pain, hope, even fear." Rena thought for a moment. "We do not have stories like that. On my planet, we only record facts." "Well," Tom said, "maybe it's time you heard one." He told her a short story about a lost dog who found his way home through kindness. Rena listened without blinking. When he finished, she said, "That is ... strange. but I think I liked it. Tom smiled. Good, you're learning what it means to feel. As the days passed, Rena became more comfortable in the house. She still kept the back room dark and hidden, but she started helping with small things, watering plants, fixing broken tools, and even folding laundry. She didn't talk much, but when she did, her words were thoughtful. One afternoon, she found Tom fixing a broken radio. She sat beside him and asked, "Why do you fix things that are old?" "Because even old things deserve a second chance," he said. She was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, "I feel old inside, even though I'm young." Tom looked at her gently. "Maybe you just need someone to help fix the broken parts." That night, while Tom was asleep, Rena walked around the house. She opened the front door and stepped outside. The moon was full, lighting up the forest with a soft glow. She stood there, feeling the cool air on her face. Then, without knowing why, she slowly took down the blanket covering the window of her hidden room. She didn't throw it away. She folded it gently and placed it in the corner. For the first time, she let the moonlight touch her face through glass. She wasn't ready to open all her walls. Not yet, but she had opened one, and that was a start. Rena woke up to the soft sound of birds singing outside the window. For a few seconds, she forgot where she was. The room felt different now. The window was no longer covered, and the sunlight touched the floor gently. She stood still, watching the golden light. It was warm, and something about it felt peaceful. She walked to the window and placed her hand on the glass. The forest outside was full of green leaves and soft wind. On her home planet, the sky was always gray, and the buildings were tall and cold. There were no forests, no birds, no fresh air like this. For a moment, she just stood there and breathed. In the kitchen, Tom was making breakfast. The smell of eggs and toast filled the house. He looked up as Rena walked in. "Good morning," he said with a smile. "Morning," Rena replied softly. Her voice was still quiet, but it had more life than before. Tom placed a plate on the table. "I made this for you. Hope it's okay." Rena sat down and took a bite. "It's good, better than energy bars." Tom laughed lightly. "I'll take that as a compliment." They ate in silence for a few minutes, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It felt calm, like two people who didn't need to speak to understand each other. After breakfast, Tom said, "I need to fix the garden fence today." "Want to help?" Rena tilted her head. "I don't know how." Tom smiled. "That's okay, I'll teach you." Outside, the sun was bright, and the grass was soft under their feet. Tom handed Rena a small hammer and showed her how to fix the loose boards. At first, she was slow and unsure. But Tom was patient. "You're doing great," he said. Rena looked at him. "Why are you always kind to me?" Tom wiped sweat from his forehead. "Because kindness is how we build trust. You don't have to hide forever, Rena." She looked down at the hammer in her hand. "Hiding kept me safe." "Maybe," Tom said gently, "but it also keeps you alone." Rena didn't answer. But later, she smiled for the first time, just a little, when Tom told a joke about a raccoon stealing his socks from the clothesline. That afternoon, they sat under a tree in the backyard, drinking cold lemonade. Rena looked up at the sky. "Your world is very open," she said. Tom nodded. "Yes, sometimes too open. But I like it that way. My world is closed. People wear masks. They don't show their hearts. Do you want to live like that again?" "No," Rena said quietly. "That's why I ran." Tom looked at her. "Can I ask why you came to Earth?" Rena hesitated, then said, "I was part of a science group. We were sent to study emotions. My people don't understand them. They think feelings make us weak. And what do you think?" "I used to agree with them," she said. "But after seeing Earth, after meeting you, I think feelings make us strong." That night, Tom gave Rena a small notebook and a pen. "What is this for?" she asked. "Write anything you want. Thoughts, dreams, questions. It helps to put things down on paper. Rena opened the notebook slowly. She stared at the first blank page. Then she wrote one word, hope. She didn't show it to Tom, but she kept the notebook close. Like a treasure dot. In the following days, Rena began to change in small ways. She walked through the forest with Tom without fear. She started laughing softly at simple things like the way the chickens chased each other or how Tom sang off-key when he worked. She also asked questions. Many questions. Why do humans cry when they're happy? What does it mean to miss someone? Why do people give flowers to show love? Tom answered every question the best he could. Sometimes he didn't have perfect answers, but Rena didn't mind. She was learning, and that was enough. One evening, they sat on the porch, watching the stars. Rena said, "Do you ever feel like you don't belong?" Tom nodded. "All the time. But I've learned that belonging isn't about where you are. It's about who accepts you." Rena looked at him. "You make me feel like I belong." Tom smiled gently. "That's because you do." Later that night, Tom passed by the back room. He noticed the door was open. Curious, he peeked inside. The room was no longer dark and hidden. The boxes were moved. The blanket was gone. Soft light from the window touched the floor. A few flowers from the garden sat in a jar on the table. Rena stood by the window, her notebook in her hand. She turned to Tom. "I think I don't need this room anymore, not to hide." Tom nodded. "I'm glad." Rena walked toward him. "I still have walls, Tom, but I'm learning to open them, slowly." He looked at her with warmth. "That's all anyone can do." Rena smiled softly and placed her notebook on the table. On the cover, she had written, "Learning to feel." That night, Rena stood outside alone. The stars above were endless. She reached up and whispered something in her language, a quiet goodbye to the life she had left behind. She was not fully healed. Not yet, but for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of the light. The days passed gently. Rena was no longer hiding. She laughed a little more, spoke more clearly, and sometimes even hummed a soft tune while walking through the garden. Tom noticed these changes. He didn't say much, but in his heart, he felt proud. She had come a long way. One afternoon, Tom was in his workshop, trying to fix an old music player. He had been working on it for weeks, but something was always off. Rena walked in, holding her notebook. "Can I sit?" she asked. Tom looked up and smiled, of course. She sat across from him and watched quietly as he adjusted the wires. "You fix many things," she said. Tom nodded. "Yes, machines are honest. When they break, you can find the reason. People are harder to fix." Rena looked down at her notebook. "Sometimes people don't know they're broken." Tom stopped working and looked at her. "Did someone break?" "You, Rena?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "My people think emotions are dangerous. When we were children, we were told not to feel. If we cried, we were sent away. If we laughed too loud, we were corrected." "That sounds cold," Tom said. "It is," Rena replied. "But we didn't know any better. We thought that was normal." She opened her notebook and turned it toward Tom. On one page, she had drawn 2 circles. One was dark and full of lines. The other was bright and open. "This was me," she said, pointing to the dark one. "Now I'm becoming this." Tom smiled. "You're doing great." She nodded slowly. "It's not easy. Some days I still feel afraid." "That's okay," Tom said gently. "Fear is part of being human." Rena looked at him. "Then maybe I'm becoming human after all." Later that evening, Tom found something unusual while cleaning. In a small box under the stairs, there was a strange device. It was metallic, small, and shaped like a smooth stone. It didn't look like anything he owned. He took it to the porch where Rena was watering the plants. "Is this yours?" he asked. Rena's eyes widened. She stepped back slightly. "Where did you find it?" she asked, her voice tight. "In the storage box under the stairs." Tom said. I didn't mean to scare you. Rena took the device from his hands slowly. She held it close, almost protectively. It's a memory keeper, she said quietly. It records feelings. Tom was surprised. Feelings? Not sounds or pictures. No, Rena said, only emotions. It's used for study. On my planet, we collect feelings from other species. It helps us understand them. Tom sat down. Beside her. Did you use it on me? Rena looked down. Only once, the night you gave me tea. I didn't understand why you were helping me. I wanted to remember that feeling. Tom nodded. And what did it show you? She turned the device in her hands. It showed warmth. Safety. Something I never felt before. Tom leaned back on the bench. I guess I'm part of your research now. Rena looked at him with soft eyes. You were never just research. That night, Rena asked Tom to walk with her to the crash site. It was the first time she had returned since the night she arrived. The forest was quiet. The stars peeked through. The trees. When they reached the clearing, the small silver ship was still there, hidden beneath leaves and branches. Rena stood in front of it, silent for a long time. This was supposed to be a short mission, she said. Study humans, record data, then return. Tom watched her carefully. I sent a report before the crash, Rena continued. But I never told them how I really felt. And now? Tom asked. Rena placed her hand on the ship. Now I'm not sure if I want to go back, she turned to him. I thought feelings were weaknesses, but I see now they're choices. And those choices are powerful, Tom nodded. You don't have to decide tonight. Rena looked up at the stars. I think I already have. The next day, Rena helped Tom paint the fence. She wore one of his old hats to block the sun and laughed softly when the wind nearly blew it off. You're getting good at this. Tom joked. I learn fast, she replied. At one point, she touched his arm and said, Thank you, Tom, for not asking me to be anyone but myself. Tom smiled. That's what real friends do. She looked at him and said, Where I come from, that word friend has no meaning. But here, it means everything. Later that evening, Rena stood by the mirror in the hallway. She touched her face, then removed the last piece of her suit's collar. It had been part of her identity, something she wore to feel protected. She set it down on the table and stared at herself. She didn't look like a soldier anymore. She looked like Rena. Just Rena. That night, she joined Tom on the porch again. He handed her a cup of tea, and they sat in silence for a while. I want to send a message to my people, Rena said at last. But not one of fear or duty. What will you say? Tom asked. She looked up at the sky. I'll tell them I felt safe with a human, that I learned more from kindness than from commands, and that I no longer want to study emotions, I want to live them. Tom looked at her with quiet respect. That's a powerful message. Rena nodded. I don't know if they'll understand, but I hope they will. Inside the house, her notebook lay open on the table. On the last page, she had written, He didn't just see my face, he saw my walls, and waited until I was ready to let them fall. The morning started quietly. The sun peeked through the curtains. Birds chirped in the garden, and a soft breeze passed through the open windows. Rena stood near the kitchen table, holding a small spoon and looking at a bowl of fruit like it was the most interesting thing in the world. Tom walked in with a sleepy smile. You're up early. Rena looked at him and smiled back. I couldn't sleep. He poured 2 cups of tea and handed one to her. Something on your mind? She nodded slowly. I think it's time to stop hiding. Tom sat down. You're not hiding anymore, Rena. You've already opened up more than anyone I know. I still keep things inside, she said, tapping her chest lightly. I still carry fear, but now I want to let go. Tom listened closely. He didn't interrupt. He just gave her space. I've always lived behind walls, Rena said. Not real ones, emotional ones. My people taught us to build them from the time we were children. They said walls protect us, but they don't. They trap us. Tom nodded. You've already taken down so many. Rena looked at him, her voice soft. There's still one more. After breakfast, Rena asked Tom to follow her to the hidden room she had once used for safety. The window was uncovered now. The air felt light. She opened a small box she had kept in the corner. Inside was a tiny silver chip, flat and smooth, with a soft light blinking in its center. This holds my full report, she said. Everything I recorded before and after landing here. Tom looked at the chip. What will you do with it? I'll send it, Rena said. But not alone. She walked to the table, picked up her notebook, and tore out the last written page. Then she folded it carefully and placed it in a small pouch with the chip. Tom raised an eyebrow. A paper message? Words from the heart, she replied. Not data, just truth. They returned to the crash site later that day. The little ship still sat in the clearing, hidden by trees and leaves. Rena placed the pouch inside a small capsule on the side of the ship. I've changed the message code, she said. No orders, no lies, just my voice, my real voice. Tom looked at her proudly. Do you think they'll understand? I don't know, Rena said, but I have to try. With a quiet sound, the ship sent the capsule into the sky. It rose like a silver star and vanished into the clouds. Rena stood still, her eyes following it. Maybe they'll send someone, she whispered. Maybe they'll just ignore it. Tom stepped beside her. Either way, you've told your truth. That takes courage. That evening, the air was cooler. A soft rain fell outside. Inside the house, Rena sat near the fireplace, reading through her notebook again. Tom was fixing a lamp across the room. After a while, Rena spoke. There's something else I need to say. Tom put down his tools. I'm listening. I didn't just come to Earth because of a mission, she said quietly. I came because I was already breaking. I had questions. Questions that no one let me ask. She looked at him. I didn't expect to find someone like you. Tom gave a gentle smile. What kind of someone? Someone who didn't try to control me. Someone who waited. Someone who saw me. Tom nodded. You deserve to be seen. Rena stood and walked to the window. She placed her hand against the glass. I thought removing my suit would make me feel exposed. But it didn't. It made me feel free, Tom spoke softly. Because you chose it. That's what matters. Rena turned back to him. And now I choose to trust, fully. She walked to the table, opened her hand, and revealed the last piece of her old life, a small badge from her ship's uniform. This was my identity, she said, but it's not who I am anymore. She placed the badge on the table, beside the notebook. Tom said nothing. He just stood and walked beside her. Together, they stood in silence as the fire crackled softly. Later that night, Rena stepped outside alone. The rain had stopped. The stars were returning. She walked barefoot through the grass, feeling the earth under her feet. She looked up at the sky, then down at her hands. Everything felt different now. She wasn't hiding anymore. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't wearing her walls. She was Rena. Whole, honest, alive inside the house. Tom found the page Rena had torn from her notebook. She had left it on the table, next to the badge. He opened it and read, This world didn't ask for me, but it welcomed me. This man didn't need to help me, but he did. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't a study, a soldier, or a stranger. I was just someone, and that was enough. Tom folded the page gently and placed it back inside the notebook. Then he looked out the window and saw Rena standing beneath the stars, arms open wide, eyes closed, as if embracing the universe. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. A week had passed since the starship left. Everything in the forest had returned to peace. The birds sang. The breeze moved gently through the trees, and the sunlight danced over the grass. But something inside Rena had changed forever. She no longer felt like she was floating between two worlds. Now, she stood firmly on the ground. Tom noticed it first. Rena walked differently now. Not carefully, like someone avoiding danger, but freely, like someone who belonged. She laughed without fear, helped in the garden without waiting to be asked, and even joined Tom when he walked to town. People stared sometimes. She still looked a little different. Her eyes still had that silver blue shine. But her smile made strangers smile back. Tom was proud of her. She had come from the stars as a stranger, scared and silent. Now she was part of his world, his life. And maybe something more. One morning, while fixing a wooden bench outside, Tom heard Rena call his name. He turned to see her holding a basket of fresh herbs and flowers. "Want to take a walk with me?" she asked. "Of course," he said. Walked into the forest, following the soft trail they had taken many times before. But today felt different. After a few minutes, they reached a small stream. Rena sat on a smooth rock and looked at the water. "This was the first place I saw clearly," she said. "The first place I felt something real." Tom sat beside her. "You've come a long way." Rena smiled. "You were the first person who didn't try to change me. That's why I changed." Tom looked at her with kind eyes. "You changed because you were brave enough to look at yourself. I just gave you space." Rena reached into her basket and pulled out a small wooden carving. It looked like a tree, tall and strong, with wide roots. "I made this," she said. "For you." Tom held it gently. "It's beautiful, thank you." Rena looked into the trees. "I've decided something. I want to stay." Tom's eyes softened. "You already are staying." "No," she said. "I mean really stay. Not as a guest, not as a visitor. I want to live here, learn here, be part of this life." Tom nodded. "Then this is your home. No one's stopping you." She looked at him for a long moment. "Tom, do you think it's possible for someone like me to love?" Tom smiled. "I think it's not only possible, it's already happening." Rena's face turned gentle, quiet. "Then I think I love you," she said, voice calm and true. Tom didn't say anything right away. He just took her hand, held it softly, and nodded. "I love you too," he said. And in that moment, no more words were needed. That evening, Rena stood at the edge of the field, looking up at the stars. They still called to her. They still shimmered with mystery, but they no longer held her. She belonged to something new now, not just a planet, not just a place, but to people, to kindness, to feeling. To herself. In the days that followed, Tom and Rena built a small room beside the house. It was her idea. A space where she could write, paint, and keep her notebook safe. She called it the feeling room. She painted the walls with soft colors, blue, green, yellow, and placed her carved tree on a shelf near the window. She wrote every day, not for a report, but for herself. Sometimes, children from the village came to visit. She told them stories not about war or orders, but about stars, planets, and how she learned to feel. The children listened with wide eyes. One of them asked, "Were you ever scared, Miss Rena?" She smiled and answered, "Yes, but being scared doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're real." They laughed, and Rena laughed too. One night, Tom brought her a new notebook. On the first page, he had written, "You undressed your walls, and in doing so, you found your heart. Now let it speak freely." Rena held the notebook close. "I never thought I'd be this person." Tom smiled. "But you are." Seasons passed. The trees turned gold, then bare, then green again. Life moved on, slow and gentle. Rena never saw another ship in the sky. No one else came from her old world, and she didn't need them to. She had built her own life, a simple one, a quiet one, but full of meaning. She wasn't a visitor anymore. She wasn't a science subject. She wasn't a prisoner of silence. She was Rena, a woman with a heart, a soul with a story. A being who once came from the stars, but chose to stay for love. Final. Entry in Rena's notebook. They said emotion was dangerous, but I learned it was the only thing worth having. They said I must always wear my uniform, but I feel strongest in softness. They said love was a weakness, but love is the reason. I stayed, and when I undressed my walls, I didn't fall apart. I became whole. It had been 10 quiet days since Rena sent the message to her people. 10 days of calm skies, peaceful mornings, and shared dinners with Tom. Each day, she felt more like herself. Or maybe she was someone new, someone not shaped by orders or silence, but by freedom, choices, and small, kind moments. Rena had stopped wearing her old suit completely. She now wore simple clothes Tom had given her: soft shirts, loose pants, and warm socks. She didn't care about how she looked anymore. She only cared about how she felt. And for the first time in her life, she felt light. But on the 11th day, that light feeling changed. It was evening. The sun had dipped behind the hills, and stars were blinking awake in the sky. Tom and Rena were sitting on the porch, sharing quiet tea as usual. Suddenly, Rena's expression changed. She sat up straight, her eyes fixed on something in the distance. Tom followed her gaze, but he saw nothing. "What is it?" She stood quickly, her voice tense. "The signal, it's back." Tom put his cup down. "From your people?" Rena nodded slowly. "Yes, they heard my message, and they're answering." They rushed to the crash site where the small ship still sat, covered in leaves and vines. Rena brushed everything aside and placed her hand on a flat panel near the side. A soft blue glow lit up. A quiet hum filled the air. A symbol flashed. Rena stared at it, reading. "It's a reply," she said. "They received my data. They don't understand it." Tom stepped closer. "What do they want?" "They're sending someone," she said, "to ask questions, to check if I've broken the mission rules." Tom's heart sank a little. "Are you in danger?" Rena shook her head. "No, not yet. But I don't know who they'll send. It could be someone from the old order. Someone who still believes in control." She looked at him, her eyes worried. "If they come here, they may try to take me back." Tom's voice was firm. "They'll have to go through me first." Rena reached out and touched his hand. "I don't want them to see you as a threat. That would only make things worse." Tom nodded. "Then what do we do?" Rena thought for a moment. "We wait, but we prepare." That night Rena couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, staring up at the stars. Somewhere out there, her people were coming. What would they say? What would they do when they saw her living like a human? Laughing, talking, feeling? Would they try to erase it all? She opened her notebook and began to write. Her thoughts poured onto the paper like water, fast, full, and honest. They told me feelings were noise. But I found meaning in every smile, every tear, every heartbeat. If they come for me, I will not lie. I will not hide. I will tell them the truth, because now I know who I am. The next morning, Tom found her asleep on the couch, notebook still in her lap. He covered her gently with a blanket and sat beside her. He watched her breathe. Peaceful, strong. She had come so far. He whispered, "Whatever happens, you're not alone." By late afternoon, the sky changed. A ripple passed through the clouds, soft but strange. Birds flew off quickly. The wind became still. Rena stood outside, facing the sky. "They're here," she said. Tom stepped beside her. "Do we stay?" She nodded. "Yes, we face them together." A beam of light appeared in the clearing. Slowly, a small ship landed, silently in the same spot where Rena's had fallen weeks ago. It was smoother, newer, and perfectly round. A door opened with a soft hiss. From inside stepped a figure. Tall, calm, dressed in a soft gray robe. The face was gentle, the eyes silver blue like Rena's, but colder. The figure stepped forward and spoke in a clear, calm voice. "Rena of Study Fleet 9, we received your message." Rena stood tall. "I sent it freely. I am here to evaluate your condition," the figure said, "and to confirm your current state of mind." Rena looked him in the eye. "I am not broken." The figure glanced at Tom. "This human, has he influenced your thoughts?" Rena replied, "Yes, he helped me find them." The figure's expression did not change. "Our system does not accept emotion as data. Feelings are not logic." "Then your system is blind," Rena said. Tom watched in silence, proud of her. The figure held out a small recorder. "You may speak your final report now." Rena took a deep breath. Then she spoke clearly, slowly. "I came to study humans. I found kindness. I found truth. I found the beauty of being open, even when it hurts. I no longer want to report. I want to live." The figure was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, he said, "This is not what you were sent to do." Rena nodded. "But it's what I chose to do." The figure looked at her once more, then turned to leave. "Will you take me back?" Rena asked. He paused, then replied, "No, that is no longer necessary. You have already crossed the line. If you remain here, you belong to Earth now." Then he stepped back into the ship, and with a soft hum, it lifted into the sky and disappeared. Rena stood in silence for a moment. Tom placed a hand on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Yes, I thought I'd be afraid, but I'm not." Tom smiled. "Because you were honest." She looked at him. "Because I was free." That evening, Rena sat on the porch, holding her notebook. She flipped to a new page and began to write again. "They came to take me back. But I had already moved forward. They brought questions. I gave them answers. They wanted control. I chose freedom. And now I belong not to a planet, but to a feeling. This is home." She looked at the sky one last time, then closed the notebook. She didn't need stars to tell her who she was anymore. She already knew.